Bord Gáis Energy, proud sponsor of the GAA All-Ireland Under-20 and Senior Hurling Championships. Hashtag Hurling to the core.
Hello and welcome to the Throw-In Independent.ie's GAA podcast in association with Bord Gáis Energy. I'm Will Slattery, delighted to be joined as always by Michael Verney. Michael, hello.
How are you, Will? Just about recovered from that weekend. Some weekend of action all told now.
I know. I feel like we get to say that every weekend we come in after another blockbuster weekend, but this one was no different. And we have John Mullane later to discuss all the hurling action. David Brady with us for the football as well. And then even this morning, more action again. The qualifier draws thrown up two really good ties. We have Waterford versus Clare and Galway versus Tipperary. The action isn't stopping anytime soon.
No, it's not. No, there was so many moments over the weekend that just left people talking, and people are probably still talking about it. Tony Kelly got 3 points in the first half for Clare the other day. There were just one was over his left shoulder, about 45 yards out at the sideline. Another one was out at the sideline, between I'd say probably the 6 yards, probably about 6 yards out from the end line. I'd say he'd no right to be going for it. Then you had Richie Hogan's goal, just one of the great goals, a real freestyle kind of hurling goal, something that like lads would be practicing on playgrounds, I'd say, for the next 10 years. It was a brilliant weekend. Yeah, I think, and it was the weekend where the hurling really took off. It got really competitive. Maybe that's because there was provincial finals at stake, and even in the back door of the qualifiers, there was no like trap door now. The All-Ireland champions Tipperary bounced back. Obviously, a really interesting game against Cork there too. But yeah, I think the action really got kind of hot and heavy properly this last weekend. And I suppose there's so many teams out now. We're really just left. The cream is rising to the top at this stage.
Well, one thing I really liked about last weekend was I got to see the Bob O'Keefe Cup, my favourite probably trophy into the GA. It's the widest thing I've ever seen. It was Colin Fennelly who was straining at the limbs lifting it, I think.
Yeah, massive kind of, if it was a person like there's this massive set of ears on it as well, almost. Yeah, it's huge.
But I suppose just before we bring in John Mullane, disappointing weekend for Offaly Hurling, losing in a penalty shootout in the Christy Green Cup. I don't know what you make of that. Very disappointing that they don't go straight back up.
No, it's an absolute disaster, Will. If you got through to the final, the two teams were getting back up, and it would have been salvaging something from, what's been a disastrous 2020. If you look at our results, we're in, there's 10 teams up in the top tier of Division 1, or is it 10 or 12? 12 actually, and we're not in that, and we didn't make the Division 2A final. So technically, we were the 15th best team in the league. And then the third tier of Championship Hurling, we weren't able to qualify for the final. And like we've had some trouble with COVID and different things like that, but it's really inexcusable now at this stage. A high profile management team in place, and I don't know, looking back at the match the other day, the penalties were just, you're kind of looking at it and kind of, you knew I almost kind of knew my fate like before I even watched them. It was just had that kind of eerie kind of feeling towards it. We didn't deliver in normal time, we didn't deliver in extra time, and we realistically probably got what we deserved, to be honest with you. I don't know, it's hard to kind of get your head around it, how like we played down in an All-Ireland semi-final 25 years ago, and now we're playing them in a Christy Green Cup semi-final and we're beaten. Very hard to get your head around, to be honest.
Yeah, and a tough 2021 to come for Offaly Hurling. But in the meantime, we'll move on to the Liam McCarthy Cup action. Delighted to be joined by John Mullane. And John, we'll start with the Munster final yesterday, Limerick versus Waterford. Limerick running out 4-point winners in the end, but it was very tight going into the final quarter. I think Waterford led by a point at one stage around that time. Overall, what are your thoughts? I suppose a good display by Waterford, but Limerick ultimately too strong.
First of all, I'd like to give a big shout out to the players and to the management team. They've put pride back in the jersey. An incredible performance yesterday. A performance that I think Waterford supporters will be extremely proud of. I was even at home myself with the kids and the wife watching it. Strange, and like the World Cup, like something magical about it. The dinner was held off, and roaring and screaming at the television, and really just a sense of pride. And I think the one thing that an awful lot of Waterford supporters will take out of this is that we're going on the right direction. We're back on the horse again, and we're going in the right direction. And there's one thing Waterford supporters over the years, they never ever mind losing. Once the team leave it out there, and they left it out there to a man. They left it out there. They threw everything at Limerick yesterday. They were incredible, and you know, a bit unlucky going down. You know, the water break possibly came at the wrong time. We were 1 point up. You know, Stephen Bennett stood up. The Burka was incredible. You know, it was just a performance that, you know, instilled a massive amount of confidence back into the jersey. And I think Waterford supporters waking up this morning and yesterday even would have been extremely proud of the performance. And I probably called it right. You know, I didn't want to be putting too much pressure on them by saying, oh, ruling my heart over my head and saying, oh yeah, Waterford are going to win. I think Waterford went into it in a nice place after coming off a good performance against Cork, and you know they were able to have a go and have a right crack of it. Now look, many people will say, look, it's another Munster final loss, but you know, coming off the last couple of years, not after winning any Munster championship matches, you'd have to be extremely impressed. And you know what Cattle has brought to the table, you know, is reflecting in the players. He demands a shift. It doesn't matter what name you are. If you're not going to be willing to put in a shift for Liam Cattle, you won't play. You won't play for Waterford, and that's reflecting in his team. They're all working their socks off, and you know, came up a bit short. But look, massive kudos to Limerick. I mean, Waterford came with an awful lot of questions, posed an awful lot of questions to Limerick going into that last quarter. But Limerick came with all the answers, and that's the sign of a really quality side. You know, when a team, you know, are not going to go away, throw everything at you, and then in the final quarter, you come with all the answers. And look, yesterday we seen the odds for the fight of a good team is that, you know, on any given day you might have some lads might give below par performance. But look, yesterday, you know, all the Limerick half forward line, but it was yesterday the Limerick full forward line stood up. I thought Graham Mulcahy, you know, when they were under pressure, he really stood up. Can I just say, like, Will O'Donoghue in the middle of the field, I just love this guy, and I think Will O'Donoghue possibly doesn't get the recognition he deserves. Sorry, and I think he's a pivotal player for Limerick, and a pivotal player in this Limerick chain. Now, he's not your natural midfielder that will go and score 4 or 5 points, but he's just a beast of a man. I actually think, and this has been kind to him, and actually offering him a compliment here, I think he's a bully in the middle of the field. I actually do. I think if you take Will O'Donoghue out of that Limerick team, they probably don't motor to the same effect with him in the team. And look, that's complemented by Keane Lynch playing alongside him. And just speaking of Keane Lynch, massive testament to him yesterday. You know, to go in and put in the shift that he put in yesterday, coming off at the back of a really tough week. And look, I send out my condolences to the Carey family. But look, Limerick, you know, they're an incredible outfit, and they justify their favourite side to win the All Ireland. But look, Waterford, yesterday was a major plus. But look, going into next weekend, what I would say to Waterford supporters is, you know, let's tread carefully with the next game. You know, I've had an awful lot of texts coming on and saying, Jesus, a great draw and stop Tony Kelly and we'll win the game. The next day kind of brings a different type of pressure in regards of Waterford are favourites, but 1 to 2 favourites next Saturday. I don't think we should be 1 to 2 favourites. I think we possibly should be 10 to 11. Clare should be 11 to 10. And I just think it's a game we should tread very carefully next Saturday coming up against Clare, because for me, it's very, very much nearly a 50-50 game. And Clare has some incredible hurlers. And I think if you're in the Clare camp and you're hearing that they're a one-man team, it's all about Tony Kelly, you're Brian Lohan, you're saying to Shane O'Donnell, you're saying to Conor Cleary, McInerney, Aaron Shanahan, they're good hurlers, very, very good hurlers. So what I'd say is it's a great result, albeit I still fancy our lads next Saturday, but it's a dangerous game. And I believe it or not, just when the draw was made, I was actually hoping we get Tipperary rather than get Clare,
Yeah. Michael, what was your assessment of yesterday's game? Obviously, Limerick with that bench in the final quarter, like against Tipperary, they made a huge impact. As John said, a lot of positives for Waterford, but ultimately Limerick are Munster champions back to back. How do you assess the game?
Yeah, a good few people saying kind of that Waterford showed the blueprint on how to beat Limerick. I suppose just to match them physically, bring that massive energy as well. But in fairness, probably Limerick are probably been, and it's no fault of anyone, but Limerick are probably been underplayed almost, in the sense that people not expected them, but they're expecting something unbelievable from them every time they go out. And yesterday they were struggling, as John says, like the much vaunted half-hour line, which is absolutely unbelievable. I think Waterford played smartly by giving them a sharp hook out. They didn't even, because that meant that there was less ball coming down the half-hour line. So the influence of Hegarty and Morrissey in particularly was negated a small bit. But the inside line went to town then. Casey with 3, Mulcahy with 4, and Gallan with 2. Just on Gallan as well, Conor Prunty was absolutely outstanding on him, I have to say. It's as good as anybody has done on him. And Gallan is often the outball for Limerick, as in if they're under pressure, they'll put a ball in the edge of the square. That was taken away yesterday, basically, because Prunty was doing so well on him. I thought he was brilliant on him. I thought Jack Prendergast as well definitely deserves a mention on the Waterford side. And Stephen Bennett was brilliant too. That chase back on... he got back on one of the Limerick forwards going through. He had absolutely no right to. I thought he was brilliant too. Waterford brought a huge energy to it. But as John says, there's only 6 days between the Munster final and the quarter final now against Clare, and it's going to be a quick come down. They absolutely emptied themselves. So I would definitely be treading carefully. I think that's a 50-50 game, but honest with you, from a Limerick point of view, a lot of lads didn't play to the level that were associated with, and they still were able to get over the line, which is huge for them. The water breaks, they won after the first water break. They won up until half time, 7 points to 4. Then after the second water break, they won 7 points to 3. So it's just a little. It's funny, and John will tell you from being on the field, it can be hard to stop things happening when you're on the pitch, and you can just go from the first minute up until half time. Then you come in at half time, and your manager, your coach will tell you this, and this, and you need to do this. But when you're getting that instruction halfway during a half, like Limerick were, and Kinnerk was probably not saying anything groundbreaking to them. He was probably just saying, we're taking shots from too far out, we're not being clever enough with possession, we need to make percentage plays. And that's what they did then. And they had, as I said, with Flanagan coming in, with Adrian Breen coming in, who we hadn't really seen yet, they have subs that can come in and make that massive difference. From a Limerick point of view, they not saying they underperformed, but some guys definitely weren't up to the level that we're associated with, and they were still able to get a result, which is huge for them. From a Waterford point of view, like what a difference a year or two can make. Just real high energy everywhere, high octane stuff, and they need to be careful though. They need to be on guard next weekend, because Clare are coming with a ball of momentum. And that's like, the draw couldn't have worked out better from a neutral point of view, in my view anyway, because it's two games that are 50-50 games, really. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning the Waterford are doing this all without Porrick Manny as well, who's missing with a knee injury. He'd be a huge part of that attack. John, what did you make of John Kiley's comments after the game about, I suppose, the members of his panel who aren't able to attend due to the restrictions around the numbers? He was extremely strong in his comments. Probably rare to see him so animated or critical after a match like that. It was probably one of the big talking points coming out of the game.
Look, he's 100% correct. I mean, how can you go in on a Tuesday night and a Thursday night and have 36 lads training, but yet you go play a match on a Sunday, and those 36 lads can't travel? You can only go down, you can only bring 26. So I think he's 100% right. I think that has to change. Now, look, an awful lot of non-GA people are probably saying, well, who are they to go saying what they should and shouldn't do? But I think he's 100% correct that, I think that has to change, and just think a bit of common sense has to prevail. That, as I said, I mean, it doesn't make sense where you can have 36 lads train on a Tuesday and probably a Thursday or Friday night, but yet they can't go to a match on a Sunday.
Yeah, Michael, what did you make of it?
Yeah, Cody was very strong on it. I think he's a very smart man as well. I think that's definitely what he thinks and what he feels. But he's also there's no talk of pressure on Limerick and Limerick being All Ireland favourites. There's less talk away from the match, should I say, and more talk on this, which I think is quite smart from his point of view. But it's obviously something he's very passionate about. He's very traditional, kind of like a Brian Cody too. And I think when he talks about things that are going on in the GAA, he tends to speak for what most people think. Now, some people will say that, I'm unable to visit X, Y, or Z, and like I totally understand that as well. But as John says, these guys are training together the whole time, Tuesday and Thursday. They're all driving in individual cars. They're all going to sit in the stand, from me to the wall away from each other. There's absolutely no threat for having another 20 people in there. At the end of the day, the games wouldn't be going ahead if it wasn't for, it's not just the 15 on the field or the 26 that are togged out. It's the 36 that are being carried by every county. And the games wouldn't be going ahead without them. So I have absolutely no issue with that at all. The fact that Kylie said as well that they weren't going to present the cup until the Tuesday night will kind of show you how strongly he feels about that, because he doesn't feel like it's a presentation unless everybody is there that helped earn the title. So yeah, I don't see it changing personally. I don't see it changing. I think that it would have been the case at the start, and I don't see them changing midstream now, but it's probably something that should change.
Yeah, and just looking at the other provincial final over the weekend, John, Kilkenny Galway on Saturday night, a real smash and grab with Kilkenny and Brian Cody's first Leinster title since 2016, and kind of like maybe the league title in recent years and the All-Ireland final appearance. It's a really great managerial achievement to get something out of this squad where it's maybe not as strong as squads he's had previously. Galway will be kicking themselves, but Richie Hogan, TJ Reid, those great warriors standing up in that second half.
Look, Let's enjoy Brian Cody for how many years he has left to give to the game. I mean, really break it down. His interview after the game, 66 years of age, right? He's probably in the high risk category, right? Probably had a few health problems as well. But let's just enjoy this man while for whatever length of time is left in his managerial career. I mean, what was that? He was his 16th Leinster title, or was his 17th?
16th, yeah.
16th. I mean, that's just remarkable. I mean, you even go back to the 80s, the 90s. I don't even think Kilkenny even won 9 or 10 Leinster championships in both those decades. But as I said in the papers Saturday, right Kilkenny after Pearl, right a Cody team after Pearl. We've seen it last year, after the Munster final, Limerick were hot favourites, and, everyone was writing off Cody, everyone was writing off Kilkenny. And it was a bit similar going into Saturday night's game, and I felt that Saturday night's game, I think Kilkenny's need was greater, and, as Galway found out, they were 5 points up, probably in control of the game. But as I've said in the past, you don't have Kilkenny beaten until you're going down the motorway with the cup in your hand.
John, just a quick one for you on Cody. Have the last 3 years been Cody's best 3 years with Kilkenny?
Big time, Verney, big time. And I'm also coming to the conclusion as well. And I think the debate is going to rise now that I'm starting to believe that TJ Reid is the daddy of them all. I honestly do. I think he's what TJ Reid has done the last 5-6 years, probably in lesser sides than what the Kilkenny teams in the past. The Kilkenny players of the likes of JJ, Henry, Tommy Welch, DJs who will come into that category of probably the greatest Kilkenny player of all time, Eddie Kerr. But I'm starting to believe now, and I think the debate is going to be out there now, that I think TJ Reid, for what he's after doing the last 5-6 years, and probably not in the Kilkenny team that we know of the old, I'm beginning to believe that he's the daddy of them all.
And then just on Brian Cody, I remember Martin Bretney saying when there was a little bit of talk about whether Brian Cody was the right man to continue to lead Kilkenny, he was saying that if Brian Cody's the greatest manager of all time, surely the greatest manager of all time is the best man to lead Kilkenny out of, maybe the funk that they were in. And what about Galway though, Michael? They would have come in with expectations after that big win over Wexford. As John mentioned, they had a 5-point lead in the second half. Those 2 goals would just really rocked them. I know they hit the post a couple of times then towards the end where they had a chance to get back into it, but now they have a very quick turnaround. They play Tipperary, very, very difficult for them now.
Yeah, it's a strange one because they actually bounced back from the 2 goals and were 2 points up again. And you're thinking, they've probably weathered the storm and they're going to kick on. But just, I think they only scored a point from, I think the 61st minute, either 61st or the 63rd minute onwards, they only scored a point. And that's, even Joe Canning hitting the post with a free is kind of uncharacteristic. And they just weren't able to wrestle back. They had wrestled back the momentum and then they kind of lost it again. There's a couple of little instances. Jason Flynn's goal chance, if he'd went the far side, it was probably a guaranteed goal. He went the near side. Owen Murphy showed him the near side and he went the near side. They just missed a couple of chances and it's going to be a difficult one to bounce back. They're obviously have 7 days before they play Tipperary. The one thing you're guaranteed is that's probably going to be a classic because every time they've met in the last good while, they've been absolute belters of games. But they would have bought themselves 2 weeks and would have been in an All-Ireland semi-final. Now they're going a really, really difficult passage. They play Kilkenny one Saturday. They're going to be playing Tipperary next Saturday. And then they're going to probably have Limerick. They're going to have Limerick the Saturday after that if they win probably. So, if they're going to win it, and I know John kind of half tipped them to win, and he tipped them to win through the back door, they're really going to have to do it the hard way. And yeah, it's amazing. I'd say they thought they were in control of the game, but the fact, and I know they got away with it 3 years ago when they won the All-Ireland, but the fact that they weren't able to hit the net, if they gotten a goal, the game probably went over. And Canning, in a sense, maybe knew that and tried to force the issue with a free. Great save from Conor Fogarty down low. But it's going to take a fair effort to bounce back. Just quickly on Cody as well, something not mentioned. Walter Walsh not doing the business, taken off. Colin Fennelly not doing the business, taken off. Conor Fogarty tiring, taken off. He doesn't care. There's no sentiment. I'd say TJ is the only one he wouldn't take off if he wasn't going well. Sentiment absolutely goes out the window, and it's just so ruthless because he knows what's going to come in is going to carry. He's going to carry kind of that Kilkenny culture. They're going to have those characteristics, those never say die attitudes when they come in. And he brought lads in and they turned the game. He wasn't afraid to make switches. And he's a ruthless man. And he got the results again on Saturday evening.
But that's a great trait of Cody. But he didn't have that, as I said to you in the paper, there, Saturday, he didn't have that luxury 3-4 years ago, where you go back to the Tipperary, the All-Ireland final in 16, where they were getting beaten up a stick and he only made 2 substitutions, and there was probably players back then that probably still stay on the field, that probably shouldn't have stayed on the field. But what he has now, he has a panel. He has a panel of players that he can call upon. And the beauty about taking off Colin Fennelly, taking off Walter Welsh, taking off Conor Fogarty, when you see them the next day, now they are going to bust a gut. That's the beauty. You've seen it over the years where he's taken off players and then they come out the next day then and they're nearly man of the match. And look at the Kilkenny performance. I thought Conor Brown was excellent in midfield. Pádraig Welch was excellent. And look, lads, we got to give Richie Hogan a mention. I mean, Richie Hogan, I still stand on the record last year that he shouldn't have been sent off in the All-Ireland final. Now, he was probably in a low place. He probably would have carried that for the best part of 15 months, or 15 months that All-Ireland defeat. Would have blamed himself for Kilkenny losing. But, they come back Saturday night and they gave the performance he gave. I mean, the goal was just incredible. I mean, I looked at it again last night in the Sunday game. I mean, it was just a thing of beauty. And over the course of the weekend, there was scores that were just awesome. I mean, you look at Cannon's sideline cut to Joseph Cody. Incredible score. You look at Jake Morris's goal, the little flick from
Willie Connors
into Jake. You look at Keane Lynch's score. You look at Desi Hutchinson's score. You look at the remarkable scores that Tony Kelly had. I actually think last weekend was the movement week. I think we finally have a championship. We were waiting for it to ignite. And it was a bit like the Champions League where there was high scoring here and there. But now we're into the business end of it now. The pressure is on. Scores are not going to come freely. And we have one hell of a championship on our hands now.
Yeah, Michael, and just on Wexford Clare as well, very disappointing day for Wexford and for Davy Fitz. There was obviously you wrote a really good piece last week kind of about the Brian Lowe and Davy Fitz kind of from friendship to feud. Great win for Clare. Tony Kelly was amazing again with 115, but for Davy, if that's the end of his tenure in Wexford, very disappointing way to finish up.
Yeah, I don't expect it to be the end because he did sign on for 2 years, so I'd be surprised. And 2020 will probably go into 2021 now at this stage because we're so close. But yeah, it was really, really poor. I was looking at the Limerick game yesterday, and I was just looking at particularly their forwards, and when the ball got from 65 yards up, when the shot's on, they take a shot. And I thought Wexford on Saturday were just overcomplicating things, and they looked a bit kind of restricted, almost straitjacketed. It's like they knew they had to play a certain way, or it had to be a flick pass here and there. And conditions aren't really conducive to that as well. I just thought they were overcomplicating things. That's not to say that they should be going away from the style of play that they're playing. I'm not saying that at all. I just thought it was just a bit too much, particularly in conditions. It needs to be a small bit, maybe more direct. The game was over realistically at half time, but not at half time, maybe 10 minutes into the second half, when Clare had kind of squeezed them and made sure that they didn't get a big rally after half time. They missed 3 or 4 good chances, albeit into the teeth of a gale in the first half. And it's hard to kind of know. 2017, he came in, brilliant season. 2018, a lull. 2019, a massive high. 2020, a massive low. There's no point in saying any different with 2 really, really disappointing kind of championship performances. He spoke after. It was interesting comments. Davey said he was getting a lot of abuse from a Clare backroom team member, and it's kind of a contrast to that. I suppose a lot of the Clare players from the 2013 All-Ireland winning team came over to him and consoled him or whatever after, and just said, best of luck going forward. And I'm sure he said the same to the Clare lads. But kind of hard to know where Wexford go. They were so close last year, and they were just a mile off this year for whatever reason.
Yeah, John, what do you make of that?
Yeah, well, look, I think Verney's 100% correct. I think he will be there next year. I mean, it's the month of November now. We're going into December now, so there's not going to be a change. I think, look, given on what he's after doing for Wexford over the last 3 to 4 years, the low base where they're after coming from the last 3 to 4 years, like he had him within, they were practically a couple of scores away from overcoming Tipperary and getting to an All-Ireland final. I think he deserves another year, but they were thoroughly disappointing. But look, they were missing probably their best player, Lee Chin. Probably the comments after the Galway game, coming out saying with the players that they didn't give enough, and then you're going asking them then to put in a shift for you 2 weeks later. Possibly looking back and if you reflect on that, it possibly wasn't the right thing. Probably wasn't the right thing to do. But look, and look from a Wexford point of view, and it's a bit similar to Waterford. This is the danger for Waterford. Those Wexford players probably would have been hearing all week that, look, they're down McInerney, they're down Conlon, they're down Dara Duggan, they're down Colin Gallen, they're down Podge Collins. The whole psyche then changes where some of the players might be coming soft and thinking they have a soft match the weekend, and all of a sudden then you get hit with a body shot, of which Clare hit him with in the first half, and it's very hard to come back from that. And that's the danger for Waterford now the weekend. It's a bit similar now where they're going into the same territory as Wexford. They're expected to win, and all you're going to be hearing all week is, look, Clare are a one-man team and they're going to be down this amount of players. And that probably didn't help Wexford, and it probably didn't help Davy Fitzgerald this week. And if any team has been hinged by no supporters being at the games, it's most certainly Wexford, and it's been most certainly Davy Fitzgerald.
Yeah, John, before we let you go, maybe predictions for the 2 quarterfinals this weekend?
Yeah, I'm going to go for Galway, and I think while I'm sceptical and worried about Clare, if our lads bring to the table what they brought yesterday, I think we will be good enough to get over the line against Clare. But I think it'll be tough, and I think it'll go down to the wire. So I'm going to go for Waterford and Galway.
Great stuff, John. Thanks so much for joining us.
No matter, Will.
Well, it's time for football now on the throw-in. But first, don't forget to share your Gaga Box moment using hashtag Hurling to the Core on Twitter to be in with a chance of winning unmissable rewards with thanks to Board Gosh Energy. And we're delighted now to be joined by David Brady to recap all the weekend's action. David, congratulations. First of all, Mayo, the first team through to the All-Ireland semi-finals. What did you make of their win over Galway? It was nervy. There was a lot of errors at times. But ultimately, Mayo got over the line. You must be delighted.
A long time coming, guys. When you look at it, it's our first Connacht title in 5 years. And hard to believe, but that's the reality of it. And I suppose the reality on a Monday morning is that Mayo are again Connacht champions and bet our rival, Galway, for what was another one-score game. That's 5 championship games in a row that the end result has been one kick of the ball, one score, and that's what you were always going to get with a clash like that and a rivalry as intense and with a heritage of tight games in Mayo and Galway. But it's brilliant, and it was different, I have to say, from a Mayo perspective. Connacht Final, and you do say that the crowd makes a difference, but what an atmosphere would have been in Salthill yesterday with 20-odd thousand people screaming to the countdown, which it was. It was a fight to the bitter end, but it was good from a Mayo perspective to get on the right side of the result. But I think it'll give a lot of confidence to younger and older players as well from winning a Connacht title. And I say that because silverware is important, and especially in Connacht, and especially for your confidence.
Yeah, Michael, and I thought some of the younger players really stepped up. Tommy Conroy kicking 3 points, Brian Walsh off the bench, getting 2 points, and then even the substitutes James Soren went to in the second half. I think Jordan Flynn, Mark Moran, Brian Walsh was one of them as well. I think Keith Higgins was probably the only one of the veteran players who we had in reserve who came in. So it's very much a new team, still with maybe the fulcrum of the senior players, but very much a new kind of core outside of that.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of comparisons between Mayo and Kilkenny actually over the weekend. Kilkenny hadn't won a Leinster in 4 years. Mayo hadn't won a Connacht in 5. While a lot of the elder statesmen mightn't have seen, a Connacht title or a Leinster title in Kilkenny's case has been a big thing before this weekend. I think it's massive for a load of the younger lads in there. It's great. You can't beat getting a bit of silverware, as David says. It's one thing, and even for the older players, it would mean an awful lot to them having not had a title in Mayo for 5 years. So I think it's huge for them. I think it's massive for this year. I think it's also very, very important even for future years that the likes of Oisin Mullen, Tommy Conroy, Mark Moore and these guys get silverware. It just confirms your buy-in to what you're buying into, and it obviously leaves them only 2 steps away. I hate to say it, especially when David is on the line, but there's almost this inevitability, I think, that they're going to be in an All-Ireland final, in my head anyway. And it's 5 or 6 days before Christmas, and that Mayo are going to be there, and the potential that Christmas could absolutely explode if they do win the All-Ireland. But I thought, what I liked yesterday in particular, and a lot of people wouldn't like it, but it was a bit of cynical play and a bit of near the end when they had to do. They've been on the other end of that for a long, long time, and at the end of the day, I actually, not that I enjoyed it, but you have to respect it. They did what they had to do to get over the line. When it looked like there was an opportunity that Galway could break the line and get a goal, they did exactly what they had to do. They've been on the other end of that for a long, long time. Be it David Clark's tee been robbed or the ball being kicked away or something like that in All-Ireland finals. They've been on the other side of that for a long, long time. So there was no way they were going to let that happen again yesterday. And I had to say a bit like a respect for that. You do what you have to do. And no one's going to remember. The history books aren't going to say that there was a cynical foul at the end of the game that won them the match. All it says is Mayo Connacht champions 2020, and they're in All-Ireland semi-final now too. So yeah, it was good, and I think the parallels between Kilkenny and Mayo are massive. Both big powerhouses, but they needed silverware at this stage. Obviously, Mayo needed it because they were going to be out otherwise, and it could be huge for them this year, but could be huge for them in the coming years as well.
Yeah, David, because I guess although Mayo are in a semi-final and have a great chance of getting to the final, it is kind of a development year as well at the same time, given how many new players James Soren is bringing in. So while obviously they're going to go all out to get this All-Ireland Championship this year, in a way, they are laying foundations as well, for the next couple of years.
From the outside in, it may seem like that. But what I do know is a lot of these players have been on the list and top of the list and kind of progressing outside the limelight of the senior team, whether it be under 21 minors or the development squad in Mayo. They have got a lot of experience in that kind of inside the Mayo setting, but it was definitely the younger players and what I would call the transitional players, the likes of Tommy Conroy, the likes of Owen McLaughlin, the younger guys, Oisin Mullen coming in. They have got an insight. But yesterday was really for them their first Connacht medal, their first opportunity to claim silverware. And to be honest, I would have seen that they were the standout performers. To give them time to bed in, they're not taking that time. And I thought Owen McLaughlin was absolutely outstanding yesterday, from start to finish. He caused numerous problems to a Galway defence. He kept on attacking down the left flank, and his comfort with the ball was outstanding. And again, he did as Mike said, he did make a very telling cynical foul in the latter moments of the game. He knew himself. That's what you call experience of a lifetime, not senior game time experience. But experience of a lifetime. And for me, again, Tommy Conroy was electric throughout the game. But I was surprised that he was actually taken off. I don't think his legs gave in. I think someone of his capability that can turn his man inside out within a millisecond. I personally didn't see where I would have brought fall to his game to take him off. But again, you need fresh legs in circumstances like this. And again, it was very positive. Look at Matthew Ruan scored 2 points from play, and really is only his second year inter-county senior football, hampered with a major injury last year. And even if he didn't have 2 points beside his name, the one thing I epitomise with Matthew Ruan is a constant work ethic, and he showed that yesterday. Time and time again, and some telling tackles, some telling runs back into a defence, dispossession guys that created opportunities and turned into winning to scores for Killian O'Connor.
Yeah, Michael, and for Galway, it's very disappointing given, they came in after the restart with such high expectations. They lost their 2 league games. The Sligo game was cancelled. And then they didn't really click yesterday either. Like, I know Damien Conroy was back on the bench, but he didn't look fully fit. Porrick Joyce will be very disappointed with how this year is finished up.
Yeah, there was so much optimism, I suppose, going into lockdown, came out of lockdown, took a spanking off Mayo, lost Comer in the middle of that as well. Were decent against Dublin, but kind of spurned a bit of a lead. And now all of a sudden they're beaten by Mayo and they're out of the championship. Difficult one because, Mayo had 2 good games under their belt. I was at the Leitrim game. Leitrim gave them a good game for 50 minutes. They obviously had a very, performed brilliantly against Roscommon. Galway are kind of coming in pretty cold and didn't really have a chance to, turn around their confidence, I suppose, if you know what I mean. It's kind of been a downer nearly since things started back. And having been so promising earlier on the year, it's a really, really disappointing way to finish the year for them. It's kind of, maybe Porrick Joyce got both sides of it. Things were going nearly too well at the start of the year and people were tipping them as, potential All-Ireland candidates. Now maybe it's a bit more realism to where they actually are and the work that actually needs to be done. But he saw the good and the bad, and if you can just harness a bit more of the good, and I suppose, it's just difficult. That Mayo game was a real kind of a killer for any momentum that they had. It was kind of taken away from them, and it's very, very hard to turn things around as quickly as that. They would have loved the game against Sligo. With due respect to Sligo, they would have put up a good score. A lot of guys would have been buoyed from that, got a lot of confidence from it, but they didn't have that. They were always just chasing the game yesterday. And Mayo were just a step ahead of them. But there's loads of talent in Galway. And I'm sure we'll see that over the next couple of years. The foundations were laid earlier on the year. they were a bit damaged, I suppose, post-lockdown, but there's definitely loads to work with.
Yeah, and David, just looking at the other kind of big football game of the weekend, a battle between two sides that will be in Division 1 next year, but there was a massive Govan clash in the day in Donegal Armagh. You know, a lot of people now saying that Donegal are, you know, live challengers to the All-Ireland crown that Dublin currently hold if they were to play in an All-Ireland semi-final. Like, how impressed were you with Donegal's performance? I think they were 12 points up at the break. The game was over even before that.
Unbelievably impressive. You know, scoring 122. You look at it, the Galway Mayo game, they scored 14 points and 13 points collectively. So it was, for me, a massive statement of intent right across the pitch. But unbelievable all-round performance. I thought they completely and utterly dominated Armagh. It was so much one-sided that you're going, you know what? They really put their hands up as All-Ireland contenders, without a doubt. And it was hard for Armagh because they could never get into the game in any way, shape, or form. They struggled for long periods of time. I think the strength and pace from Donegal was overwhelming to a degree that just they never let them settle into it. And I think Declan Bonner would be very, very happy with that performance. And again, it's against Northern opposition, tough. Armagh tried to keep it as tight as they could, but the pace, the power, and I think that the overall combination of again youth and experience has combined well.
I think the big thing with Donegal now is that it's not a case of stop Michael Murphy and stop Ryan McHugh and you beat Donegal. They've so many other strings to their bow. Murphy was even quiet and a bit frustrated at times, particularly in the first half the other day. Probably same with McHugh, but now you have Michael Langan, you have Kieran Thompson, you have Hugh McFadden kind of driving forward. They've built an awful lot in recent years, and they look to be kind of seeing the fruits of that. Just that there's not a reliance on the big men anymore. Like if they were stopped in last year or even previous years, Donegal would struggle, whereas they're not struggling without them at the moment. And they'll be in a situation probably in the next game or two where Murphy and McHugh do deliver. And if they deliver big performances on top of what's coming in around them, they're going to be really hard beat.
And on that, guys, Paddy Morgan, absolutely outstanding. Again, another breath of fresh air into the GAA scene, coming from a half-back position. And I think that's where you look at it, that a lot of teams that have mastered the ability to counter-attack from the half-back line allows the like of Michael Murphy, if you looked at it from a Mayo context, Cillian O'Connor, Tommy Conroy, Aidan O'Shea spent more time in his own half defending than he did attacking, but he creates room, and that's what happened for the likes of Paddy Morgan yesterday. And you have Ryan McHugh, who's on the far side, who can counter attack at any opportunity. I think that's what a lot of teams are doing. They're making sure they have the defense correct, but it's the counter attacking players, and Donegal do it to perfection.
And Michael, for the third game in a row, Cavan overcame a halftime deficit, this time 1-9 to 4 points down against Down to book their place in the second consecutive Ulster final. Would you give them any chance of producing a similar upset against Donegal? It looks like a tall task, but still a phenomenal achievement for Mickey Graham in his 2 years in charge.
Yeah, savage achievement. Same as last year, same Ulster final as last year. They've probably got in there against the head. They were obviously relegated to Division 3. They've produced, 3 big results. Even Antrim put it up to them for long stages, even in the quarter final. So it's a fair effort. Probably in a way they're there, but there's probably a little, maybe even less expectation than last year, because there was a decent bit of expectation last year, and Donegal kind of blew them away. This year, massive pressure on Donegal. Cavan kind of squeaked in there this year. So I gave them a chance, but Jesus, it looks like Donegal are going to be very, very hard to stop. As I said, there's just so many kind of moving parts to what they're doing now. There's no longer a reliance on some of their bigger men, but savage effort from Cavan. Like someone like Gerard McKiernan, who's never left the panel and who's always kept trucking away with them. Even they got Killian Clark back, Thomas Galligan coming in. Ray Galligan's brilliant goalkeeper as well. Like I remember chatting Mickey Graham earlier on this year. I think maybe first or second game of the league. It looked like they were going to struggle big time this year, missing a lot of big names. They got a couple of them back. few would have probably predicted them to be in an Ulster final. I know I didn't. So it's a massive, massive achievement. And he just seems to work the oracle no matter where he goes, be it Mullen or even in his 2 years with Cavan. They've been outstanding. Tall order in the Ulster final, but great to be there nonetheless. There's a lot of teams sitting on the sidelines and they're still going strong.
Yeah, no, I think there's only about 5 or 6 or 7 teams left in the football championship. But David, just to finish up on the Leinster championship, obviously we're going to have Dublin Meath in the Leinster final next Saturday night. Dublin ran out pretty comfortable winners in the end against Laois, albeit Laois kept it kind of close in the opening stages. But the Meath Kildare game was quite an odd one. I think Kildare were 10 points to 4 up at half time, and then Meath hit 5 goals in the second half. Do you think Meath could put it up to Dublin anyway next year, or next weekend rather?
You know what? The one thing that has impressed me with Meath this year, that they have been competitive throughout, and even look at, they have that experience and the planning of playing Dublin this year already in the National League. And there's no team that overawed them. I did watch the Meath Mayo game, and they should have beaten Mayo down in up in Park Talton. I think they're set to really, really cement their place in Leinster as the number two team going forward. Look at, no one is going to come out and saying they're going to beat Dublin in any way, shape, or form. But I think given the comeback they had yesterday from half time and scoring the 5-9, I don't think that happens by luck. I think they're well drilled, and again, Andy McEntee will be setting himself up for saying, okay, Dublin will dominate, but how Meath set up will be interesting. I think they will, in some way, shape, or form, probably give Dublin probably a closer game than they have in Leinster in many, many years. But impressive comeback, and again, they've been impressive without getting points on the board throughout the National League. And I think it'll be one I'm actually looking forward to from a Leinster final perspective.
Yeah, Michael, interestingly, I think Meath hit 5-9 when they last beat Dublin in 2010.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought when I looked at the results yesterday.
I don't know if that's an omen or anything like that, but even 12 goals in their 2 Leinster Championship games, like, you know, if you look back to when Donegal beat them, 3 goals in 2014, Meath obviously 5 goals in 2010. You need goals probably to take this Dublin team down. Can they do that next weekend? Because even Laois had a couple of chances.
Yeah, just on the Kildare game, I was at the Kildare Offaly game the week before, and at times the centre of their defence was like a landing strip, and Offaly should have got through for 2 or 3 goals. So I wasn't altogether that surprised that Meath were able to take advantage of that. Probably a bit more seasoned team than Offaly. They're going to need probably 3 or 4 goals realistically. I think the Leinster final last year would have hurt them a good bit too. It's going to be very, very hard to beat Dublin, obviously, but you want it to be respectable. They kicked 4 points in the Leinster final last year. It was an absolute obliteration, and I think they'll just be looking. The signs are decent for me. The 2 performances in the league were good. Even some of the ones as Davis's earlier on the year were good. The Leinster Championship so far has been brilliant, as I said, with 12 goals. They just will want to put out, like, the more than Waterford in the Munster final. Mightn't be expecting to win, but you want to put up a big performance. You want to put up a big display, do as much as you can. Something like if Meath were to hit, 3-9, 3-10, the game could be interesting, particularly at this time of the year. You'd still expect Dublin to up far too big of a score. But from a Dublin perspective, I think they'd like to be asked a lot of questions, particularly at the back. They'd love to have those questions asked. And you'd imagine Meath might pierce a few holes in their defence. It's just a matter of maximising those chances. But yeah, I thought the exact same. 5-9 to 13 or something, wasn't it? Or something like that when they beat Dublin in 2010. It's going to have to be a bit of a freak result for something like that to happen again, I think.
Yeah, we'll finish up maybe with predictions for the 3 provincial finals next weekend. Mike, I might start with you. We have Cork Tip, we have Donegal Cavan, and then that Dublin Meath one, first one on Saturday night, I think. That'll be the first one.
Yeah, I think Cork and Tip will be much tighter than people think. Obviously, there's pressure on Cork now. They were underdogs coming into the Kerry game. I think Tip will give them a very good game. I think I only see 3 or 4 points in that. I would expect Cork to come through. I think the Ulster final, yeah, it's very, very hard to look past Donegal. There's no point in saying any different. And yeah, Dublin probably, -7 maybe, -7, -8 in the Leinster final, something like that, I'd say. But I would be, I'd be amazed if the 3 favourites don't oblige. But the tightest will be in Munster, I'd imagine.
David?
Yeah, look at it's you can't be you don't mean to be disrespectful, but you have the likes of Dublin who are nailed on favourites, and I think it will be as close encounter as they've got in a long time. I think. Again, Donegal seem untouchable, but from a Cavan perspective, I think they're not going to just show up and making up the numbers. And again, as Mike says, the question everyone is going to ask is can Cork produce a display that is capable of crowning the Munster champions? Tipperary, again, a team that have got to an Ireland semi-final in 2000. I know what year was it? 2016. Yeah. They still have the bones of that team. And again, we talk about youth. They've integrated some fine youthful players, but they've got some of their experienced players back on board. And I you know what? That is anyone's guess. Because both teams see the eye on the prize. It's not like the long road now where you have to go into a quarter final and you're meeting a team on a run of 5 wins in the back door. It's a straight road, straight door into the All-Ireland semi-final, and after that, anything can happen. But I think Cork should prevail from experience, and I think they have learned from last week's that their depth in their squad and the guys they brought on can help them get over the line.
Yeah, well, the favourites certainly look in a good position, but it'll be interesting to see if there can be any shocks next weekend in the 3 provincial finals. In the meantime, David, thanks so much for joining us. That's all we have time for this week on the Throne in association with Board Gosh Energy. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week with another podcast reviewing all the weekend's action. And in the meantime, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, SoundCloud, or listen on independent.ie. So until next week, thanks for listening and goodbye.